The church was filled with flowers. That morning soft white roses covered the entrance while warm sunlight passed through the tall windows and fell across the wooden floor. Everyone was waiting for the bride Virion, except one person. Her father Emma stood near the altar in a beautiful white dress holding a small bouquet. With trembling hands she kept looking toward the church doors. Every few seconds she turned her head, hoping to see the man who had promised her he would never miss the most important day of her life. Her father Daniel had raised her alone after her mother died. When Emma was only 8 years old, had worked long hours, saved every penny, and made sure she never felt the emptiness of growing up without a mother. When Emma was 17, Daniel had told her something she never forgot. "On day when you get married, I will be the first person waiting at the church." Emma had smiled and promised him she would never walk down that aisle without him. No, that day had finally arrived, and Daniel was nowhere to be seen. Her fiancé Thomas stood beside her, trying to remain calm. Guests began whisperings and thought Daniel had forgotten the wedding. Others believed he had never accepted Thomas. Emma refused to believe either explanation. She knew her father would never abandon her. Then the church doors opened at every turn, but it was not Daniel. It was an elderly postman carrying a small brown envelope. He slowly walked toward MRU. Emma Carter nodded. The postman handed her the envelope and quietly said, "Your father asked me to give you this only if he could not come today." Emma stared at the handwriting on the front. It was unmistakably her father's. Her hands began to shake. She opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Daniel standing beside a young woman Emma had never seen before. In the back of the photograph were 6 words: "I am sorry I had to leave." Emma looked at the picture again, then she noticed something that made her heart stop. Young woman was wearing the same silver necklace Emma had inherited from her mother. The church suddenly became silent. Emma looked toward Thomas, then back at the photograph. For the first time in her life she realized that there was something about her father's past that he had never told her, and whatever it was, it was the reason he had missed her wedding. Emma could barely breathe as she stared at the photograph. Woman standing beside her father looked strangely familiar. There was something about her eyes, something about the way she smiled, that made Emma feel as if she had seen her before, but she knew she had not. Daniel had always been careful about his past. Whenever Emma asked about her mother, he would smile subtly and tell her that some memories were better left alone. She had accepted that answer because she trusted him, but now that trust was beginning to crack. Emma turned the photograph over again. There was nothing else written on it. She looked at the postman and asked where her father was. The old man lowered his eyes. "She told me he was leaving town before sunrise." "Did he say why?" Postman hesitated, said there was something he needed to make right before he could face you. Emma felt tears gathering in her eyes. Why would he choose today? The postman slowly reached into his coat and pulled out another envelope. He said, "This one was different. Your father told me to give this to you after the ceremony." Emma looked at the envelope. Her name was written across it, but before she could open it, Thomas gently touched her arm. "Emma, you do not have to do this right now." She looked at him. "This is my father. You need to know the truth." She opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. "If you are reading this, then I failed to keep the promise I made to you 17 years ago. I promised I would stand beside you on your wedding day. I wanted more than anything to be there, but there is something I have hidden from you all your life. Something your mother begged me never to reveal." Emma stopped writing. Her hands were trembling. Thomas stood beside her in silence. She continued, "Woman in the photograph is not a stranger. She is the reason your mother disappeared from my life. She is also the reason I have spent 17 years protecting you." Emma looked up in shock. Her mother had died when she was 8. At least that was what Daniel had always told her, but the letter was saying something completely different. You read the final lines: "If you want the truth, then go to the old railway station outside town. There is a blue door beneath the broken clock. Behind it you will find everything I could never tell you." Emma folded the letter slowly. Then she looked at the wedding guests. The ceremony was supposed to begin, but suddenly the wedding no longer mattered. She handed her bouquet to Thomas. "I am sorry. Where are you going to find my father?" Emma walked out of the church, still wearing her wedding dress, and As she reached the old railway station, she saw the broken clock. Beneath it stood a faded blue door. The door was already open. Emma stood in front of the blue door with her heart pounding. The old railway station had been abandoned for years. Broken windows allowed the afternoon wind to move through the empty building. Dust covered the wooden floor and weeds had grown through the cracks near the walls. Yet the blue door looked strangely untouched. Emma pushed it open. Inside was a narrow room filled with old boxes, photographs, and forgotten belongings. A small lamp was burning on a wooden table. Something had been there recently. Emma stepped closer. On the table was another photograph. This time it showed her mother, Emma Frazee. She had not seen that face in years. Her mother was standing beside Daniel, but they were not alone. The same young woman from the first photograph stood behind the Mima picked up the picture. In the back was a data. 3 days before Emma was born. Her breathing became shallow. Then she noticed a small wooden box beneath the table. Her name was written across it. Emma Carter. She opened the box. Inside was a hospital brooch. Let a tiny white baby blanket and several letters tied together with a faded ribbon. The first letter was written by her mother. Me beautiful, and if you ever read this, then your father finally decided that you are old enough to know what happened. And Emma pressed the letter against her chest. Her mother had written to her, but why had Daniel hidden it? Continued reading. Your father did not abandon you, saved you. There are people who believed our family had something they wanted, something that could have destroyed many lives. He was afraid they would use you to reach. Mima looked toward the door. Suddenly she heard footsteps outside. Simeon was walking across the station. She quickly turned off the lamp and hid behind a wooden cabinet. Footsteps stopped. A man's voice came through the doorway. She found the room. Another voice answered, then find the girl before Daniel gets back. Emma covered her mouth to stop herself from crying out. Daniel had not left town, was somewhere nearby, and someone was searching for her. Voices moved away. Emma waited until everything became silent. Then she returned to the table and opened the next letter. This one was from Daniela. There is something I never told you about. The day your mother Deej did not die in the accident. Emma stopped. Her entire body went cold. She read the next line. Your mother was alive when I last saw her. For 17 years I believed she was gone until yesterday. Emma dropped the letter. Her mother might still be alive. She looked at the photograph again. Then she noticed something hidden behind it. A recent photograph had been taped to the back. It showed an elderly woman standing outside a small cottage. Emma recognized the necklace around her neck. It was the same silver necklace her mother had worn in every childhood photograph. In the bottom of the picture, Daniel had written one sentence: I missed your wedding because I finally found her. Emma stared at the photograph for several seconds. Her mother's face looked older, but there was no doubt in her mind it was her. The woman she had believed was dead for 17 years was alive. Emma quickly placed the letters back inside the wooden box. She had to find Daniel before anyone else found her. She left the station and followed the address written on the back of the photograph. Road led toward the edge of the countryside. The sky was turning gray and the first drops of rain began to fall. After nearly an hour, Emma reached a small cottage surrounded by tall trees. The front door was slightly open. Emma stepped inside. The room was warm and quiet. Old photographs covered the walls. Then she heard a voice behind her. Emma turned. A woman stood in the doorway. Her hair was gray. Her face was tired, but her eyes were exactly the same as the eyes Emma remembered from childhood. Emma could not speak. The woman slowly walked toward Harry. Knew this day would come. Emma began to cry. The woman covered her mouth. For 17 years she had imagined hearing that word. Emma ran toward her. They held each other without saying anything. Then Emma stepped back. Why did you leave me? Her mother looked toward the window. I never left you. Was forced to disappear. She explained that 17 years earlier she had discovered that someone close to the family was stealing money from a company connected to powerful people. When she threatened to expose them, they threatened Emma. Daniel had been given one choice: take Emma and disappear, or watch his daughter become their target. So Daniel had told everyone that Emma's mother had raised Emma alone and kept her hidden, but there was one person who never stopped searching for the woman in The photographer name was Victoria. She had been Danielle's closest friend and she knew the entire secret. Emma suddenly remembered the letter. But why did Dad leave me on my wedding day? Her mother looked at her with tears in her eyes. Because yesterday Daniel found proof that the people who threatened us 17 years ago had discovered where you lived. Emma felt the room spin. Left the wedding to protect me. Her mother nodded. Knew they would come after you once they realized he had found meth. And the front door suddenly slammed shut. Both women froze. A shadow moved across the window. Simeon was outside. Emma held her mother's hand. A voice came from the garden. Daniel, who you are here? Emma looked at her mother, but Daniel was not there. Thun. Another voice spoken. This time Emma recognized it. It was Tom Asherfield, the man she had trusted, man waiting for her at the altar. Emma stepped away from the window. Her face turned pale. Thomas had not come to find her, had come to find her mother. And suddenly Emma understood why her father had missed the wedding, had never been running away from her, had been running toward the truth. Emma stood completely still as she heard Thomas outside. For months she had believed he loved her, had trusted him with every secret she had, but now she realized that their relationship had never been what she thought. Her mother pulled her away from the window. There is another way out. They hurried through the kitchen and entered a narrow passage behind the house. The rain became heavier as they ran through the trees. Then a car stopped near the road. Daniel stepped out. His clothes were soaked and his face looked exhausted. When he saw Emma, he stopped for a moment. Neither of them moved. Then Emma ran toward him. Daniel held her tightly. And sorry, Emma cried against his shoulder. Why did you leave me on my wedding day? Because I knew they were coming for you. Looked at her mother, and for the first time in 17 years the family stood together again. Daniel explained that Thomas had been working for the same people who had threatened Emma's mother years ago, had entered Emma's life because they believed she could lead them to her mother. But Daniel had discovered the truth only days before the wedding, knew that if he stayed at the church Thomas would realize that he had found the woman they had been searching for. So Daniel left, not because he wanted to miss the wedding, but because he wanted his daughter to survive. Emma looked down at her wedding ring, slowly removed. I thought you abandoned me today. Daniel shook his head. He could never abandon you, only wanted one more chance to protect you. And police cars appeared at the end of the road. Thomas and the others had been caught after Daniel secretly sent the evidence to the authorities. For the first time Emma felt safe. Several weeks later Emma returned to the church. Flowers were gone. The chairs had been removed. Music had disappeared, but she was not alone. Her mother stood beside her and Daniel stood on the other side. Emma smiled through her tears. She realized that the wedding she had lost was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of discovering the family she had thought she had lost forever. Daniel looked at her and smiled. Promised I would be there when you got married. Emma took his hand. You were there, Dad. You just had to save me first. They walked away from the church together, and behind them the doors slowly closed. For 17 years Emma believed her father had kept the truth from her because he did not trust her, but now she understood the real reason. Sometimes the deepest secrets are not kept to hide the truth, they are kept to protect the people we love. And sometimes missing one important day is the price a parent is willing to pay to make sure their child gets to see another day.